Let's do solving right angle triangle. Solving right angle triangle. Let's deal with solving right angle triangle today. So guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to get more videos like this. So we'll start by doing missing side, and it's better shown through an example. So let's just do example 1 and you see what's happening with missing side. Let's take that they've given you an instruction. They say number 1, they tell you to calculate x given the diagram below, and this is the diagram that you have been given, something like this. You have your 90 degrees there, you have your 5 units, you have your x, then you have your 25 degrees here. Then they tell you to calculate x. What do you do? What's the first thing you must do when you are asked a question like this? First thing, you must identify your sides. Your sides, you identify them like this. If you've watched the previous video, you know that from your angle to 90 degrees, that's where you have your adjacent, and the 90-degree angle is facing the hypotenuse, and the remaining side will be your opposite. So another thing you do, or the second thing you do, just write your SOHCAHTOA on the top so you can remember your definitions. So write your SOHCAHTOA. Then you look at what you've been given. Look at the values that you've been given outside the triangle, or the sides that you've been given. You've been given 5 units and you've been told that you must find x. So what has the hypotenuse and the opposite in its definition? Which ratio has that? You'll discover that it is sine. Sine is the opposite and the hypotenuse. So you go and say sine of 25 degrees, because you use 25 to identify the side, is equals to your opposite over hypotenuse. Your hypotenuse. So you plug in the values that you've been given. Sine 25. Your sine 25, remember, it's equals to opposite over hypotenuse. So what do you have on your opposite? You have 5. You plug in your 5. You plug in your 5 right there. 5 over x, because x is your hypotenuse, and that's what you must find. So what do you do when something is like this? Sine 25 degrees is equals to 5 over x. You must cross multiply. So your 5 will multiply with your 1, and sine of 25 will multiply with x. So it will be x multiplied by sine of 25, which is equals to 5. So remember, you're solving for x, so you must cancel out the sign or take it to the other side. So because they are stuck to one another, you must divide both sides by sine 25. Your sine 25 degrees there. So sine 25 degrees. Your sine 25 degrees will cancel sine 25 degrees, then your x will be 5 over sine 25. Then you use your calculator to find your answer. So when you hit it with your calculator, punching in your calculator, you discover that your answer is 11.83 units, converting it to 2 decimal places. Remember, convert it at your last answer. Don't convert it somewhere in the way. So make sure you convert your answer at the end. So let's take, they gave you another one, and they said number 2. They said number 2 they ask you to calculate y given this triangle where you're given 50 as your angle, is your y, which you need to find, then 7 units. On the other side, remember, the first thing you do, you must name your side. So from your angle 50 to your 90 degrees, that's where you have your adjacent side. I said the 90 degrees faces the hypotenuse, and the remaining side is your opposite. So looking at the values that you have been given, you will notice that you've been given a hypotenuse and you were asked to find y. So what's the definition? What's the definition you're going to use? You're going to discover that you're going to use a definition that has a adjacent and a hypotenuse. So what is an adjacent and a hypotenuse? We go back to our SOHCAHTOA. So we discover that what is our adjacent and our hypotenuse is cos. Cos is an adjacent and an hypotenuse. So you say cos 50 degrees, because that's what you use to identify the sides, is equals to adjacent over hypotenuse. Hypotenuse, which will be equals to your cos 50, your cos 50 equals to adjacent. Your adjacent is your y, your hypotenuse is your 7. So when you get here, remember you must cross multiply. So y will multiply with 1 and cos 50 with 7. So it will be y multiplied by 1 will be equals to y. Then cos 7 multiplied by cos 50 multiplied by 7, it's 7 multiplied by cos 50. Cos 50 degrees there. Then you punch in your calculator to find your answer. You discover that you find an answer of 40,5, converting it to 2 decimal places, 40,5 units. So you have your 40,5 units there. So let's go to missing angle. Let's take your given this example. So right now we're going to be dealing with missing angle. That's what we're going to be dealing with. So let's take, you're given an example. This is example number 2. Let's call it example number 2 and say number 1, they say calculate angle A. Given the diagram below, where you have your diagram like this, your 90 degrees right there, they say this is 1 unit, your 1 unit right there. Then they say square root of 3 units, then they give you your A, which you're supposed to find. Say that angle right there is A. So what can you do? Remember, the first thing we do, we must identify the sides. So from your angle to your 90 degrees, your adjacent side. Your 90 degrees faces your hypotenuse. The remaining side will be your opposite. Never forget that. It's very, very important. So you write your SOHCAHTOA so you can remember the definition of each ratio. The SOHCAHTOA. So you look at your your values, you'll discover that you've been given a value at adjacent and also at an opposite. So which ratio is an opposite and an adjacent? You discover that it's tan. Tan is an opposite and an adjacent. So you say tan of A or of angle A is equals to what? Opposite over adjacent side, which is equals to tan A, which is equals to what? What's your opposite? Your opposite is 1. No, your opposite is not 1. Your opposite is square root of 3. Square root of 3. Then your adjacent is 1. Your adjacent is 1. So now we need to solve this. So how do you solve this? How do you solve tan angle A, which is equals to basically square root of 3, because anything divided by 1, it's that thing. So here's what you need to do. You must take this tan, you must take your tan to the other side. So how do you take your tan to the other side? You take your tan to the other side by pressing shift tan on your calculator, and it will give you tan -1. Then you plug in your square root of 3. Then it will be equals to 60 degrees. Then you have found your angle as they have asked you to. So let's take another example, or another question rather. They said calculate P, or angle P, given the following diagram. Given this diagram, they said calculate P, 90 degrees right there, which has 4 units, 5 units, which has your P, which you were asked to calculate. And they say calculate your P. Remember, the first thing you do, never forget this. You identify your side, you name your sides from your angle P to your 90 degrees adjacent. The 90 degrees points at the hypotenuse, and the remaining side will be your opposite. So you go back to your definition. So katoa, what is an opposite? Because this is where your value is, and your hypotenuse, rather, not your opposite, and your opposite. What is your opposite and what is your hypotenuse? So in the definition, you discover that it's sine that is an opposite and a hypotenuse. So you say sine P is equals to what? Opposite over hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is equals to, what's your opposite? Your opposite is 4 over what? Your hypotenuse, which is 5. Your hypotenuse, which is 5. So sine P is equals to opposite over hypotenuse. So now you must take your sine to the other side. How do you do that again? Remember, you must always use reference angle shift, where you press shift in your calculator. Then your angle P will be equals to sine inverse of 4 over 5. Then you use your calculator to find the answer there, and your answer will be 53,13. Then you would have found your answer right there. So that's it for today. That's how you find your missing side and how you find your missing angle. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you comment, make sure you like. You can also share to some of your friends so they may also be helped with this knowledge which you have received today. So thank you for tuning in. See you again in the next video.